Question: how do you know a Christian doesn't understand the Bible? Answer: because they're a Christian. I would say that about other people, but I got to kind of bring in my channel here. I'm trying to teach how you interpret things and make it good, and people aren't getting that. So I'm just going to talk about what happens when you don't interpret the Bible. My name is Dan Paulson. I'm an atheist. But what is an atheist? I want to be very careful here. You were an atheist when you were born. I don't care what you say or what you think. Everybody is born without a belief system. You don't have one. And if you are taken out of a home and put someplace in isolation or in a different religion, maybe you come from a Christian home, but they take you out right after you're born. You don't even go home, and you're not even there. Your parents, for some reason, give you up for adoption. So you're raised in Saudi Arabia as a Muslim. You will grow up and become a Muslim. And it's not because you're a Muslim or because you're a Christian or because you're a Jew or anything like that. It's because you were born ready to be programmed. Everybody is born, I don't know what to believe. Teach me. Teach me. Okay, this is what I'm being taught. This is what I believe. I'm going to become Christian. I'm going to become Jewish. I'm going to become whatever the case may be, Hindu. Yeah. Unless you're the kind of person that throughout that religion looks and says, wait a minute, there's something bigger going on. All these things are for the masses. There's something bigger going on. I'm going to separate from it. And suddenly you've gone from being an atheist to being a theist to now going back to an atheist. Now, what you guys struggle with is what should be a term called anti-theist. I, as an atheist, don't believe in God. But that doesn't mean I'm going to come after you and go, you're a liar, you're a liar, you're a liar, you're a liar. You know, somebody that's an anti-theist is like got channels up that are like, atheist channels. Call in and let's fight and let's argue. And I mean, yeah, I'd love to do that too. But the call-in people are incredibly low-level thinkers. When I watch those call-in shows, it's like, oh my God, that attracts the absolute dregs. I'm sure good people. If you're looking for entertainment, you want that kind of conflict. At any rate, okay. So as an atheist, I am not an anti-theist. What I am is a truth seeker. Also, when I'm told that I need to open my mind so that I believe, you are born with an open mind. You don't believe anything. What happens when you get a belief system is that I'm open to anything becomes fixed into something that is no longer an open mind. The theist mind is the closed mind. It's not closed to its own belief, but it's closed to every damn thing else that doesn't coincide with it, or it calls it evil. That is not an open mind. An open mind says, you know what? I don't know what to believe. I'll keep it open. I need to say that to all the people who are going to say, you know what? You need to open your mind. It is open. You need to open yours. What you're trying to say is you need to believe what I believe and stop believing other things. That's what you really mean. Okay. You call it an open mind, but that's not really what it is. Okay. Got that clear? Comments, questions, again, that's fine, but something intelligent. All right, so I just put up a video on God's first chosen, Abraham, and then their son Isaac, how they have this propensity to say, I'm scared that these people are going to kill me and take my wife because she's beautiful, so I'm just going to say she's my sister, and my wife will say she's my sister too, and then I give up my wife. There's something really weird going on. However, the first time, it's really severe. Sarai marries Pharaoh. And they get animals and slaves and all kinds of things as a result. Pharaoh gets pissed off, tells him to get out of here. So that one went bad. When Abram becomes Abraham does the same thing with Sarah. He gives her up to King Abimelech. I don't recall. He gives her up to a king. But before the king can marry her, God intervenes and says, no, don't do that. And so the king tells God, they lied to me, so that happened. Now so the first time it was very severe. This time it didn't it was stopped before that happened. As Isaac comes along and they do it, he's spotted kissing his sister. What he said was his sister. And so they realize, wait a minute, that's not his sister, that's his wife. Why did you do that? So this time it didn't even go so far as to get married. If you read those, you'll see that there's a progression of severe, close, but didn't happen. This time didn't even happen. There's a pattern there that's there for a reason. It's a human life. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. If you really pay attention to the story and get into it too, you have to have the head that tracks these things and gets into the story. It's kind of an automatic thing. I think that's why people don't follow it. They don't get into it. I have I have a mental inquiry going on all the time. It never stops as things are coming in. And it's just the way the brain is wired. It's not something you turn on or off. It's the way you are. It's normal. So anyway, so something else I notice here is that when the first incident happened with Abram and Sarai, God was not present, and God sent plagues after the fact. The second time, it's Abraham and Sarah, the same two people, different stage in life. God interferes before the act happens. And when it becomes Isaac, the interference happens before the marriage or before anybody even takes her in. So there's the progression of something, the severity of something is changing, as well as God in the beginning was there after the fact, and then God is there to catch it, and then God is there to make sure it doesn't happen to begin with. There's something going on you need to watch. If you don't interpret it, what do you got? You got a spineless person and a slutty wife willing to just sleep around and get stuff for it, don't you? Yeah, that's kind of weird. That's not a good story. Let's look at another one. Let's look at Lot, willing to give up his virgin daughters. All right, let me catch you up right here. 17, we just had the change of Abram to Abraham. So the calling happens. Abram became Abraham, and Sarai became Sarah. So same people, just different stage of life. And what happens is that the Lord is telling Abraham that it's time for the destruction of Sodom, that I'm going to send a couple of people to go help them out. And the two men turned their faces from thence and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before the Lord. They're angels that are being sent. And Abraham drew near, and he has a conversation with God. We're going to skip over that because it doesn't do anything for us here. Well, we're going to jump to this. And there came two angels to Sodom in the evening, and Lot sat at the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose to meet them and bowed with his face toward the ground. So those two angels showed up down there to help Lot get out of Sodom. Sodom's going down. Sodom's going down. You better get the hell out of here. And he said, behold, now, my lords, turn in, and I pray you, unto your servant's house. So he's telling them to go in the house and stay there all night, wash your feet. You get up early and go on your way. So, get yourself cleaned up and rested and all that. And they said, no, we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly. So he was like, no, come on, you got to come in. And they turned into him and entered into his house. So they said, okay, all right, fine, we'll go in. And he made them a feast and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, the evil men of the city, came around the house, compassed the house around. They came around the house, both young and old, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot and said to him, where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out into us, that we may know them. We may know them. What does that mean? Well, we may know them. It just sounds like, well, we'd like to know those guys. Hey, what you doing? What's your name? Where are you from? That's all it sounds like, kind of, doesn't it? It's going to change bad quickly. You have to understand what's going on. And Lot went out the door and shut the door after him. So he's got the angels inside. He's got the door shut behind him, and he's saying, I pray you, brethren, don't be so wicked. I have two daughters which have not known man. Okay, now we know what that means, so we may know them. My daughters have not known men. What does this mean up here? That we may go into them, that we may something. Yeah, what the hell? Think about it. And in case that's difficult, they want the men of the city, all of the men of the city, want to have gay sex with the two angels. Clear? Behold, now I have two daughters, which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and you do with them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore they came unto the shadow of my roof. Do to them is as good in your eyes. Let's reword that. Treat them however you want. Okay, so I'm going to protect these people that came in under my roof, and since you come here and you're incessantly wanting to plug holes somewhere, why don't I just give you my daughters? You know what? I raised daughters. I can never imagine managing it this way. You tell the men of the city, you don't get anything. It's not one or the other. It's not your call. And if you lose, you lose, but you stand up for it first. Why are these people like this in Genesis? take my virgin daughters instead of the angels. The angels probably could have just poofed them into non-existence. Okay, what I'm doing here is not interpreting it. I'm reading it literally. This is why Christians don't know the Bible. You can't answer to that stuff. Or it's going to be these excuses like on the other video. Well, let those of you who have not sinned cast the first stone. You know, that's an excuse for behavior. Don't even sit there and tell me that I am somehow the same kind of a person. I don't do that. But if you're going to defend it, I think you do. You defend that behavior. Why would you defend that behavior? You need to be looking at that saying, you don't trade your virgin daughters to evil men. You don't trade your wife to somebody else and get goods for it out of fear. But then you do it. Yeah, there's just something wrong with these stories, isn't there? Yeah. That's why you need to read them and try to understand them. Again, there's a reason for that story to be there, but if you don't interpret it, scummery. That's why I'm an atheist. This is poor value. Incredibly poor value humans. Questions, comments? Love to hear them. As long as they're not just, emotional outbursts. See you in the next video.